Businesses thrive by knowing customer insights because today's insights are tomorrow's facts. At iResearch, we live and breathe insights. And despite searching high and low, we were unable to find a customer insights podcast that answers one of the most important questions in business. Why do customers do what they do? So we launched one. Hi, I'm your host, Darshan Mehta. On this episode, I'm speaking with Prateek Panda. He's the Vice President of Marketing of Phyllo. Phyllo is a data gateway that provides common APIs for applications to access creator data with the creator's consent directly from all leading creator platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, Patreon, and many more. These APIs provide instant and continuous data around a creator's identity, engagement, income, and more. Phyllo builds the underlying infrastructure that connects with every creator platform, maintains a live data feed to the systems these platforms use to manage creators' data, and provides a normalized set so that businesses can make use of creators' data in a way that is simple yet impactful. Welcome, Prateek, to the show. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Darshan. It's great to be here.
So I know you've been a successful entrepreneur several times, 3 times, in fact. You've had successful exits. You've grown businesses from 0 to 25 million ARR. And I'm curious, tell me the aha moments that have put you on this path of want to be an entrepreneur and on some of the ventures that you've done.
I think the biggest aha, having done multiple startups, is that you get to know that it tends to get a little easier with time. I still remember, like, my first startup was pretty much a mess, right? Like, I was 19 years old when I started my first. I don't think I understood what I was really getting into. It was difficult. I had to shut down the business after 2.5 years. But it was fun at the same time, right? And as time went by and as I've done more startups, it's just gotten better with time. Doesn't mean that the challenges don't exist, right? It's just mentally you get stronger. A lot of things tend to get easier. The challenge still is on things like execution risk is always still there. Strategy risk is always still there. But a lot of the early issues, how do you find funds, how do you find your first early customers, and so on, those things still tend to get a little bit easier. How do you build your team and so on, right? So over time, I think that's my biggest learning, that there is some statistic also that says most successful entrepreneurs started their businesses after 40. So I'm hoping that there is still time to be successful for me, right? So I'm still getting there. So I think that's biggest aha for me, right? And we tend to, as founders, we tend to obsess a lot and get consumed a lot with the startups that we are running, right? So I think that's my learning and my advice to everyone, that it gets easier with time, and just be a little bit easier on yourself as well.
I want to talk a little bit about that in terms of what's easier. I suspect the execution part is still a challenge there, but I'm thinking what might be easier is you learn to be more patient, and you know that persistence in the end pays off. And so you may not as get flustered with things when they go wrong, because you know they're going to go wrong, right? And I'm wondering, is that the part that gets easier? Because you actually kind of know that you don't really need to panic or worry, and that one way or another you'll figure it out. So is it a matter of it gets easier because you have more confidence, more awareness that things happen in cycles? I'm curious, what gets easier?
Yeah, I think those are some parts that are easier. Dealing with people gets easier, whether it's new, teammates that you get on board, or whether you're dealing with investors as well, right? Experience helps you handle investors better as well. And for me, right, like when I started my early companies, when I was in my early 20s, I gave too much importance to the people providing us the funds, right? And over time, I just realized that you have to look at them as partners in the journey as well, right? They want you to be successful as much as you want yourself to be successful. But end of the day, it's your company. They are a source of fund, and you want to do your best to give them a good return as well. But end of the day, you are the one running your company. You have to take the call, whether it goes good or bad. It's entirely on you, right? So these kind of things tend to get easier. Handling pivots tend to get a little bit easier, because in your mind now, that getting to that product market fit is often a challenging path, right? In the past, when I was doing my early startups, you would go in with an idea and you're really trying to make sure that this particular idea works and you're resistant to doing anything else, right? But as I've matured and done this a few times, you realize that you go in with an idea, yes, and you try to push that as much as you can. But the key thing is to keep listening to your customers, keep listening to the market, and try to adjust accordingly, right? So more often than not, I've known almost every successful startup pivoted in some way to get to finally where they were. And the key thing over there is to keep listening to the market.
Mhm. So I'm curious, when you've come up with these entrepreneurial ideas and ventures, have you found a way or a path that gives you that inspiration or that spark that gives you that insight saying, hey, there might be something here that I can turn into a business? What is that? If you can share that with us.
Yeah, so growing up also, in my early 20s as well as I was building startups, I used to have this sort of notes document on my Mac itself, on my iPhone itself, and I used to keep listing down a variety of different startup ideas, right? I would try to list down something that I'm facing today, some challenge using a particular product or something that I observed. But end of the day, all these ideas are about dime a dozen. So you have to execute to be able to see light of day. So going back to what you were asking about, you get inspired by everything around you. If you observe for a little bit, there is an opportunity to make things better almost everywhere, right? So whether it is software, whether it is you taking a cab somewhere, so many things can inspire you to actually make something better. Now, whether the delta, which is what it is today versus what you would like it to be, is worth it or not, is the big question that an entrepreneur has to answer, right? That delta has to be big enough or impactful enough that it makes a sustainable or a large enough business. Now, nothing against bootstrapping and things like that, right? Not every business is meant to be 100 million ARR business, and not every business is meant to be something that's built for an IPO, which means that not every business is meant for venture capital, right? Because if you raise VC money, that's the path you have to follow, right? Or that's the path you're at least aiming to follow to be successful. But there are so many businesses and founders that I know who run bootstrap businesses, and I have tremendous amount of respect for those people, because it's a lot tougher to do that, right? But you still build a sizable business, a respectful business, and so a lot of inspiration is just around us. We need to keep observing.
Now that you've done a few startups, I'm curious how important and how much faster do you try to get to market fit than maybe you did in your first venture?
Oh, it is a lot faster now. In fact, even with Phyllo, the team is made up of a lot of ex-entrepreneurs, and even on the operator side. So we've managed to execute much faster, and we've managed to get to that product market fit also much sooner. And then this economic shifts happen, and money started drying up in the VC space, and which meant a lot of our customers in the creator economy got affected, and we had to pivot again really soon, right? And we tried to pivot into another direction and still achieve product market fit very quickly. The learning there, or the aha thing there for me also, as a past entrepreneur, is that if you have a team of people who've also done this before and who are ready to be agile, right, you tend to be able to listen better, listen to your market, listen to your customers better, which tends to get to that product market fit also a lot faster. In the past, it's taken me like 2 years, and we had run out of our seed money by the time we got to that product market fit, which is not a smart way of doing that. So now, of course, the markets are also much tougher in today's date. I don't think somebody's going to give you money unless you show some signs of product market fit. Uh, so those things are just signs of the market tightening up a little bit as well. But yeah, I mean, it does get faster and easier with time.
So tell me what aha moments as well as customer insights led to your current venture, Philo.
Yeah, so the thing is that we realized that, and particularly the co-founders of Phyllo, they've been creators themselves and realized that a lot of creator services require data which is hard to get, right? So, for example, we have a customer that provides a credit card to creators. Now, in traditionally, what would happen is, creators might be making a lot of money, but they don't fit the traditional risk appetite of a large bank, right? So you won't get a mortgage even if you're making thousands of dollars a month out of YouTube. You won't get a traditional mortgage for buying a home, or you even a mortgage is still a large amount. People don't even get a line of credit, right? So what this company did, which is a customer, is started issuing out credit cards and smaller credit to these creators. But traditionally, what they had to do is they had to ask for bank statements, look at their YouTube earnings, ask for screenshots of brand sponsorship, partnership, etc. Right, a very cumbersome process. So we realized this was happening in multiple segments in the creator economy, and getting access to data from these hundreds of creator platforms was just hard. Some of them had a publicly available API like YouTube or Twitter and Meta platforms and Instagram and so on, but so many others did not, right? And there's OnlyFans, there's Snapchat, with Patreon, there's so many newsletter platforms and so on, right? There's hundreds of creator platforms today where you could make money doing something. Right now, everybody needs data from all of these platforms. And what kind of data? You need data around followers, engagement, likes, comments, subscribers, demographics, income, and so on, to build those tools and services on top of this data. So getting access to this data was hard. And going back to that example, once they started using Phyllo and Phyllo's APIs, they're now able to take these credit decisions in less than 30 seconds, because we are able to pass like an authenticated data stream from YouTube for that particular creator with the creator's consent, that they allow the credit application to go view how many followers they have on YouTube, what is their engagement data, how much money did they make out of the YouTube AdSense and so on in the last month or last 6 months for that matter. So that this access to data and democratizing access to data is helpful both for creators as well as businesses who want to build tools and services for creators.
Mhm.
And the idea there was that together, if we work in harmony, we'll be able to grow the whole creator economy. And that's the big goal we are going for.
It's interesting. So you actually start out to help the creators, but you realize that it actually serves as a very valid way to, as an audit function for their customers to actually say, is this creator able to do what they're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts on influencer marketing versus traditional advertising. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've been doing performance marketing, let's say digital advertising, for more than a decade now. And over the last few years, right, there are patterns to show that the ROI is dropping down considerably. And when I say ROI, it's largely because costs of acquiring these leads out of performance marketing is going up significantly, right? It's like costs of running ads on LinkedIn or on Instagram, Facebook has gone up a lot over the last few years. So cost per lead is higher, the cost to get in front of that audience is higher, and so on. And I think that even though influencer marketing is still a relatively new channel, it has all the signs of being more performance oriented. Why I say that is, typically influencer marketing, at least in the more recent past, was used as a branding or visibility channel, right? Large brands ended up working with celebrities and making more noise, creating more visibility about their brands. But today it's not so much about visibility. Yes, it can be still a branding objective, but the entire ecosystem and infrastructure is getting stronger in a way that everything's measurable, the impact can be seen on the bottom line, on conversions as well, right? And I think that influencer marketing will continue to be a very strong performance marketing channel, where it doesn't sit separately in like a branding team, but more importantly, a head of performance marketing might want to look at influencer marketing as one of their primary channels, right? So that's at least what I think.
Are you also able to gauge, or do you plan to gauge credibility and authenticity of these influencers?
I think that is one of the biggest things if you want to be successful, right? There are, millions of creators on these platforms. Even if you look at the large creators, which are roughly 2 to 5% of the total set, by large, I mean people who have more than 100K, 200K followers, right? One of the things you want to check as a brand also is authenticity means different things. Authenticity in message and action, right, is one of the most important things. Is the creators audience able to connect with them because they are being authentic in their posts? A lot of creators would only promote products that they have tried before, whether it's B2B products, B2C, doesn't matter. They would like to try, get their hands dirty, and then talk about the product, right? And a lot of times I've seen review videos where those are paid reviews, but still they would also highlight some of the things that they did not like in the product. All these kind of things build better authenticity for the creator as well, because it creates a better connection with their audience. End of the day, that's what matters. Two is, we've seen this trend of a lot of fake followers, right? So one of the things that I advise, at least to a lot of brands getting into influencer marketing, is don't just get swayed away by what follower count you see. Somebody might have 1 million followers, but 30-40% of them are fake, which means that their engagement number is actually pretty low. So end of the day, you have to understand what your objective is out of this particular influencer campaign, and you don't have to necessarily always chase the one with the largest following. Look at people who have a better demographic fit for the audience that you want to get in front of. Even if it is a small, creator with 10K, 20K, 30K followers, that might actually be a better fit for you, and work with 10 of those kind of creators rather than one that has, 1 million followers but not enough engagement, right? So you have to kind of look at all of these things as you make a decision on using influencer marketing.
So now that you've worked with a lot of influencers, I'm curious, what aha moments have you had, prior to going to working with the influencers, and now that you work with them, what have you learned that's been quite revealing to you?
Yeah, I think, in all honesty, we are still a little early on doing influencer campaigns ourselves. But even within that short period, there have been a lot of aha moments, ranging from, your budget estimates getting tossed, because you can find, honestly, creators that would charge $300 to $500 per TikTok post. But I've also worked with TikTok influencers who would charge, upwards of $15,000 for a post. And this is a 60-second video that goes up on their feed, right? Yesterday, I was actually interviewing someone for a podcast that I host, and she mentioned that one of the TikTok influencers they approached charged $30,000 for a 60-second video on TikTok, right? And that's insane. So that's one of the biggest aha. And going back to what I was telling, is you really, I mean, if you have the budget to go work with folks like this, great. But more often than not, I think a large part of brands who are at least getting started with influencer marketing will not have such large budgets. And the more important learning over there, the aha moment, is do not put all your eggs in one basket. If you have 30,000 or 15,000 or whatever it is as a budget to try out, the only way for you to really know if this channel is going to work for you is if you experiment with a large enough set of creators and try different kinds of post formats. That will help you understand this better. Two is being honest in what you want to get out of the post itself, right? If you are doing a TikTok video, for example, or a Instagram video with a creator, yes, you want to get more sign-ups and things like that, but you need to be very, very honest. Like, one of the products that we were launching was actually a very early stage product. Now, if we go out to a creator and tell them that, hey, go crazy, promote this product, and we give them the creative freedom to create a video the whatever way they want, the thing is, they are also always going to focus on, okay, how do I help this brand get more signups? But there was an important caveat to the sign up quality that we needed. We wanted people to sign up who would also be ready to talk to us, talk to the product team to make the product better, because it was a very early stage product. Now, that authentic communication should also come on the video. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of signups. People will come on to the product and realize that, okay, this seems a little too early for me, and drop off, right? And, product teams, sales teams can, customer success teams can keep chasing these people. But once you've lost them, you've pretty much lost them. So I think one part is identifying that sort of fit, how you want to work with influencers, how many of them should you bring into your mix. But two is also being very authentic and understanding the authenticity uh, as a brand also, and then working with a creator who wants to be authentic as well.
Now, the influencers you're working with, are they mostly in North America or internationally, or where?
Yeah, so far we've worked primarily in North America, but doesn't like I've helped a lot of other brands, and I talk to a lot of influencer marketers who tend to do campaigns all around the world. In fact, Asia is a big market for influencer marketing,
Mhm.
particularly because a lot of apps have sort of this shopping abilities. A lot of social media apps
Right.
have the ability to shop within the app, and that creates a big avenue for influencers. So in the B2C side, especially e-commerce, I think there's tremendous opportunity for you to use influencer marketing, irrespective of what part of the world you're in.
So I'm curious, you mentioned B2B. How effective is influencer marketing with B2B versus B2C? Are they on par, or is one still more attractive for influencer marketing?
See, I think end of the day, it comes to human psychology, right, or consumer behavior, and we've read through a lot of these things in basics. Now, if you go back to basics, you would know that everybody gets influenced by somebody or the other to make a purchase decision. Now, influencer marketing might sound new, but the concept of influence has been around forever, right? Like even as kids, you would have a neighbor that is really good with something, or you have a family member who advises what's the best electronics product to buy, and so on, right? Even before a lot of these review platforms came on, or influencers started to come into existence, the concept of influence always existed. Now, if I go back to one of my startup days, I used to run a cybersecurity company called Appknox, and we used to sell this software to a lot of CIOs and CISOs. All of them used to talk to each other, and a lot of this used to happen in closed group discussions and closed rooms, and they would want to know, hey, what are you using for XYZ? And they tend to have a lot of this conversation, and that influences their purchase decision. And we had also seen that happen because once we had onboarded a big bank whose CIO was a big fan of what we were building, and he used to be very proactive in going and talking about our software. Nothing, he was not getting anything in return, but he was just really excited that he's found a solution that he feels is also the best in the market and makes his app more secure and so on. And he went ahead and told a lot of his other CIO friends, right? And
Hmm.
that's started a wave of new banks starting to come sign up with us. Now, that's also influencer marketing, right? So we are just trying to do that now in a more online, larger setting with more planning, and identifying who the audience is and so on, right? But this used to happen in the B2B space, always in closed group settings. You go to events because you want to network and get to know people who are using whatever they're using to solve what problems, right? So I think the execution part is still a little more difficult on the B2B side, but nothing stops it from becoming as effective as it is for B2C, right? You just have
Yeah,
to understand, yeah, you just have to understand who the right influencer would be, and try to work the same magic with them as you do on the B2C side.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right about influencers, and it's always been around. I mean, before the internet and all the whole influencer marketing, you were looking at magazines, right? Different magazines appeal to different segments and different groups. So basically, influencers are just different media channels that you can take advantage of. But I think what's interesting what you're doing with Phyllo is that you basically are formalizing it in terms of actually being able to you know give a performance measure as a third party as to the effectiveness and how honest these influencers are in terms of what they're able to have accomplished and what they potentially could do for you moving forward. So I think it's very interesting. Um, where do you see influencer marketing heading?
I think more focus on ROI, right? Like I said, in the past, influencer marketing has focused too much on vanity metrics. When I say my vanity metrics, more like, follower count, engagement. You put out a post, you got so many likes and so many comments. If you actually start looking at some of these posts, right, a lot of brand marketers, a lot of marketers on these teams tend to create these collaborations with influencers and get really excited and happy about the reach that they've gotten, right? So the video was viewed 1 million times, or got 3,000 comments. Now if you go deeper and look at those comments, you would see so many of them are just bot comments, so many comments are people just self-promoting themselves, so much of it is just gibberish, doesn't make any sense. Like, I would advise everybody who's listening to this podcast, right, just go pull up some post that's very popular, go down to the comment section and just see what comments you're seeing, and you would agree to this completely. But as a brand marketer, you've gotten excited that, oh, and you've reported this to your C-suite or whoever else is like, we got 500,000 views on this post and it was great, and it reached out to so many people and so many comments and so on. What we are suggesting, at least, and what I think the future of influencer marketing is more ROI driven, because the only way channels become more successful is when you can measure what it has to do for you, right? So even if it is reach, it has to reach the right audience. And in the past, a lot of this data was not easily available. Now, what we are trying to do with Phyllo also is incorporate more of this, the analysis part of it. So when you put out a post, are you getting engagement for the right kind of from the right kind of people? Is there a strong brand fit? So we will also do sentiment analysis on the comments to understand, are the comments positive, negative, is it spam, and filter all of that out. How many of the influencers followers are actually fake followers? How many of the comments are fake comments? So I think that's where this whole channel is going to evolve into. It's going to focus more on the ROI part. I think influencer marketing will slowly start getting into the performance marketing scope, which we've already started doing on the Phyllo side. Initially, when we started experimenting with influencer marketing, it was this independent team trying to do their thing. Um, Very recently, I'm starting to move it under the growth or performance marketing bucket, because I think that's where it fits best. So I think those are some things that we will see happening more and more. And as I talk to more influencer marketers as well, everybody is starting to get a little more conscious about ROI. And I think the current economic scenario has played an impact in making this happen, because the dollar that you hold on to today is worth a lot more than it was 2 years ago. Meaning, year and a half ago, also, VC capital was easily available. People were focusing on really top line numbers. As you might have also noticed, that everybody is a lot more conscious on their bottom line today than they were even like a year ago. So that's going to bring more push on ROI and more focus on ROI on the influencer marketing channel.
What are the factors you look at ROI? For example, is it more important to focus on engagement or conversions?
I think it depends on the objective. So if your objective is, hey, I want this to reach as many people as possible in my correct target audience, then the right ROI measurement criteria would be the reach, right? Because that's what you're aiming for. But if your objective is to get conversions, or let's say you're an e-commerce brand and you want to get more people to buy this new sneaker line that you've launched, then yes, you go measure that. And today there is infrastructure available where you can create the correct kind of tracking links, and you share those with the creators or influencers, and they use that in their posts, and you'd be able to really chalk or analyze that entire journey from somebody watching their video to clicking on the link, coming onto your website, making a purchase, all of that, right? So it's starting to get easier to map out this whole journey, and a lot of tools are available to help you do this more intelligently. So ROI, end of the day, depends on the purpose, right? So as a brand, you need to know, why am I doing this campaign? Do I want more sales on my platform, or do I want more reach and engagement? I just want people to be aware that I exist, right? So that'll help you understand what metrics you need to look at.
So when it comes to these influencers, are you able to actually also measure their level of ethics in terms of the way they do things, and is that part of your criteria as well?
Two ways to answer that, right? On one part, on the tool itself that we have, there are some criteria or some metrics that will help you get a better sense of that. Things like, let's say, fake follower count, right? That gives you a rough idea about, where the ethics is for this particular person. And all large accounts have some fake followers. If it's within the 5-7% range, you're good. If it's 20, 30, 40%, then they've largely relied on this fake follower count to build up that momentum. So there might be an ethics issue over there that you should be careful about. I'm not saying that you do not work with them, but while you're exploring that relationship, please be very careful about this data point, right? Then there is the engagement kind of data, right? Are their audiences even engaging with their content? Somebody might have 500K followers, but less than 10K people interact on a post at one point. So that might not be good enough for you. And, you have to go analyze their posts to see that is there an authenticity misfit here where, the content doesn't come as authentic, which is why they're getting low engagement. Now, this is not an ethics thing, but still very important, right?
Sure.
Three is when you get into the contract negotiation, also, you get very good signs of ethics for a person, right? So now the challenging part with influencer marketing as a channel is that you're end of the day dealing with humans on the other side. And that makes the process a little bit more challenging and difficult, right? So the contracts have to be, very well thought out, and that phase is going to tell you more about the ethics also, right? So I've worked with influencers who've gone ahead and said that, hey, I'm going to first use your product and only then will I create a video. I actually like working with those kind of people, right? And then there have been influencers who've told me, send me a script, I'll read it out. But for me, I take a step back at those kind of things, because then it gives me a sense that all they want to do is go promote it and get done with it. Whereas I would like to build a more longer term relationship with every influencer that we work with, because then there is more interest in making each other successful, right? So that's also another thing that we've learned the hard way is, don't look at every influencer campaign as just one campaign. When you're trying to identify the fit with an influencer, give them 3 months or 6 months to work together with you. Yes, it might mean you'll have more hits and misses in the journey, but it's really hard to say that if one post is going to just do it for you, right?
Right.
And don't take that decision that, hey, we put out a post, it didn't work, this influencer is not good. No, I think there's a lot of human aspect over there, how the story was told, whether that connection happened with the audience or not, um, the timing of the whole thing, right? So give it more time and momentum, and you'll understand. And that's where you would see the ethics part, where during these conversations, I've had influencers come to me and say that, you tell me what you want to achieve as a brand, and I'm going to work on the narrative, and we'll do this together, right? And I want to make sure that you guys are successful, and that makes you feel more confident as well, and that brings good ethics up front as well.
How accurately are you able to measure fake followers versus real followers?
I think it's pretty much accurate. I don't know if I can claim 100% accuracy. I don't think you technically can claim 100% accuracy, but very close to 100%, right? Because there are trends you can see, the kind of username, the kind of comments they analyze. And, we analyze like 400 million accounts across social platforms today, right? And that gives our engine enough of a learning as well to identify these patterns. And you would see that, a lot of these accounts tend to be in a lot of different places. They tend to give the same kind of comments. So you can find those patterns pretty accurately.
Interesting. What do influencers do when you call them out on it? Do they adjust them, or do they actually fess up, or they just say, I don't want to be part of your network"?
We've done this exercise with a few influencers where we gave them access to the product, right? So they analyzed their own profiles and got to know that, hey, my engagement dropped here, and or hey, why do I have so many fake followers? So a lot of times they don't know either that they have a lot of fake followers, right? They've grown tremendously, in the recent past, and you don't tend to keep looking at that data very often. It's not going to say that, hey, yes, of course, if you have 40-50% fake followers, I'm inclined to think that that was intentional. It doesn't happen by accident. But a lot of times people didn't know they had like 10, 15, 20% fake followers, right? And I really, to be honest, I really don't know how that works.
Yeah, because I can see that because they're chasing the numbers like anybody else, right? If my numbers are going
Yeah.
up, it's quite possible. Many of them don't even know that they're fake,
Yeah.
but it's interesting.
So it's been more of a revelation for them that, oh, I did not know this, and how can I dive deeper and get to know this and fix this and so on, right? Most people have that kind of response. Where the fake follower count was actually very high, I've actually just never reached out to those people. Like I don't advise that. That's the only way. If you really think that even with the 50% that's left over uh, is authentic, and if their messaging is authentic, to be honest, at that point, I really didn't have bandwidth to go explore all this. So I would rather put that, in a maybe list, that if I'm not able to find a strong fit influencer, or, a bunch of strong fit influencers, I might go talk to this person. But unless it's absolutely necessary, I'm going to stay away from that. And a lot of brands will actually do that. So to all the influencers who are listening, try to stay on top of your numbers as well. I know it's a hard thing to do, right? Because you're creating content, you're always trying to grow your audience, and nobody wants to drop 20K followers because they're fake and that your number might drop or whatever, right? But keep an eye on that. It's very important to brands, and as more tools like Phyllo also exist, um, everybody is able to check that also, right? So
All right.
in order to have better chances for yourself, look at your data better, right? So that's one tip to all influencers as well.
It's also a good tip because if they want to be in it for the long game, then it's in their interest to do that as well. And that
Yeah,
can, as you know, if they can improve their numbers, and in fact, if their engagement's higher than their numbers, they're actually going to be able to command higher rates as well.
definitely, definitely.
And that's something that's music to the ears, if not a motivator, right?
Definitely. Who doesn't want to make more money?
So I'm curious, in the world of influencer marketing, who would you love to have lunch with and why?
So I think I would still call this person an influencer. So in the startup entrepreneurship world, I don't know if everybody knows this name, but Naval Ravikant, he was the founder of AngelList, and he's been a successful entrepreneur. But I think I'm going through a phase where I connect with him better, because a lot of his posts are at the intersection of uh, entrepreneurship and just life, right? And philosophy. So I think he's a good philosopher for the new age, where, back in the day, philosophers inspired people to just give up everything and, whatever. It doesn't work today, right? Like, you want a little bit of your luxuries and comforts, and you're working hard for that, but you don't want to get consumed by it. I think a lot of novels, articles. I think he's one of the best deep thinkers of our time, and I would just love to spend an hour with him face to face, and talk about a lot of these things, right? Because end of the day, I think we are all chasing something, but uh, are we happy internally in the process? And he talks a lot about all of that. He did have the option to continue to build bigger and better businesses, right? And like I said, you only get better with time, but he chose to sort of take a step back and do things that really give him joy. Like, one of the things that you would search, and you can come across on a lot of Reddit threads also, is how much money is enough money, right? So one of the things he tells about is that once you make your, if you're earning like 50K a year, the moment you cross 100K, it seems like a lot of money. You'd go to 200, 300, and you would see so many articles of Bay Area employees getting paid $500,000 a year or more. If you go ask them, nothing changes beyond a point, right? Like, and the same is for entrepreneurs. Even if you talk about the millions, you make your first million, you really feel something. You make your first 10 million, you've got a paid off house and whatever. Beyond that, it's not going to be a significant change in lifestyle, unless you, of course, you want to go, full on luxury and buy a yacht and whatever not. But like in general, for most people, and I've had a lot of friends from India who started businesses in the US and had like 50 to 100 million exit, made fair amount of money for themselves. There wasn't a lot of pick up in their lifestyle. The only things people do is find better education for their kids, buy a nicer car, pay off their house. That's pretty much it. That's all we are aiming for, really. And beyond that, everything is just okay. It's good to have. So these are the kind of things that Naval also tends to talk about a lot. And I don't think he's like an influencer in the sort of sense that
Right. I know
we've
what you're
been
saying.
talking
Right.
about. So,
Right.
yeah, he doesn't like go around promote products and all that stuff. But he's very vocal. He's very, visible, very active on places like Twitter and stuff. So, one guy that I get very inspired by and would love to meet him.
So I'm curious, what's your drive, or what's the thing that's motivating you to learn more about philosophical issues now?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, maybe it's midlife crisis coming early, you know. Uh, but
You're still
but
young, right?
I think
You're still young. I mean,
yeah, I'm still young. I haven't had. I'm just getting closer to my mid 30s now. But I think a
so you
large
can't.
part
I
of
think you
it.
say midlife crisis yet.
Yeah. So the thing is, I as a kid also I've always had a very spiritual bent. I think I was lucky to sort of be born in India, and I had parents who inspired me in that direction, and I always had a major spiritual influence since I was probably 16, 17 years old. My best friend helped me get into a lot of this path, and it was fun back then. And we learned a lot in the process and in a fun way. Um, so that definitely helps. But more recently, the last year or so, I've also had a tremendous and I tend to talk about this a lot on my social channels also, is around mental health. I've had like the first experience of uh, mental health difficulties over the last year, right? I lost about 20 pounds,
Mm.
just stress and, a lot of personal complications and so on, right? And entirely, driven by poor mental health, right? And so I think those are also things that tend to take you, in a phase where you start thinking, okay, what is the purpose of life, right? And I don't think I would ever stop, doing startups or working for a startup for that matter, right? And because it gives me that adrenaline rush that I also need, right? But at the same time, uh, before we started recording, we were just chatting about, what part of the world I'm in right now. And, one of the things is I do tend to travel a lot, and our team is distributed. And I work really early morning hours also, really late night hours also. And at some point, you have to stop doing that, right? It's just not healthy for your body. And all that affects your physical health as well as mental health, right? So those are patterns that I've identified over time, and how in the past in my 20s I probably did things that were poor for physical as well as mental health. But you're in that rush at that point, hey, startup, this, that, blah, blah, right? And I think that's the phase that I'm going through. It's not that I'm still very excited about, changing the world and doing things, but I'm more focused on making sure that there is some amount of balance for yourself as an individual as well, right? If you're not healthy physically as well as mentally, you're not going to be able to deliver, even if you're on a startup journey, right? So
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think as time goes on, I mean, we all, I think, in a way, subconsciously know about the most limited resource being time, but as time moves on, it becomes more, I think, prominent, right? And you begin to look for more meaning. And I think post events like COVID and stuff, it's just expedited that for many, many people. And I find that more and more people are trying to find, hey, what's the meaning behind all of this. And they say like, what they're engaged in, what they're doing. But I think that's also led to being a bit more philosophical and trying to understand the bigger picture and, the role that we play. And I've been through it myself. And, in terms of learning about the what's my purpose in life. And
Yeah.
so I've actually come to a conclusion for me.
Oh,
Have
that's
you?
great.
Yeah. Have you figured out your purpose in life?
I mean, one thing I know is if I observe my childhood as well as all my youth years and stuff, I've always been able to have a good amount of people around me, wanting to listen to my ideas and whether they agree to it or not, right? So I tend to think that I have the ability and I have the desire also to do greater good. So one of the things that I'm brainstorming with a friend of mine is called Thousand Lives. I
Hmm.
feel that all of us as individuals have a capacity to impact at least 1,000 lives in our lifetime, right? So it might seem like a big number, but if you really go around over a life that's maybe 50, 60 years, we easily have an ability to impact 1,000 more lives. And you can
Hmm.
impact it in different ways. You might go help somebody find a better path to success in education, for example. So many people have reached out to me and how did you get into this B school? I wrote a lot of articles about it, how to prep well, and so on, right? That is also still creating impact and helping them out in their journey. Same goes on with startup path, entrepreneurship, spirituality. There are so many ways people could contribute. You could, give money to somebody who doesn't have food to eat. You could
Hmm.
go volunteer at, events every weekend or whatever. Numerous ways to contribute, right? So I think everybody has the ability to do that. And I think that's the kind of movement I want to start where you have a counter and that motivates you. Like we forget about all of our likes and subscribers and followers and all of that for once and think about, have I impacted, two people this month,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
how can I do that? It could be your coworker, it could be a family member. Everybody needs help in some or the
Yeah.
other way, right? So can we go help in some way? And so I think that's the objective. I haven't been able to really formalize this, but I wanted to start something called Thousand Lives and just inspire more people to impact 1,000 more lives, right?
I think it's a very interesting idea, and that kind of fits in with what my purpose I've learned. And this happened as went through a whole journey when my mom was not feeling well and she passed away 3 years ago. And I realized that my purpose is to learn to be human. And it's
Mm.
nothing that I'm going to ever accomplish completely, but it's something that you keep moving forward. And it's an ongoing, constant learning process. And that's work for me.
Yeah, and that's difficult, right? And really, to be honest, that is the essence, right? For us to be human. And I think I read somebody's status recently. And it said, we are humankind, right? But we have to be human and kind.
Yes.
So human plus kind is what makes us
Yeah.
humankind. And that was very interesting, and it hit me that, right? End of the day, if you really have to be truly human, starts with kindness. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
so good luck with you on that journey, and it's an interesting journey. And I think the first real big thing is to understand that that's the journey you want to take.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, listen, Prateek, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate you sharing your aha moments and your ventures and stuff with us. And I look forward to talking to you. In fact, we may have to do another podcast on 1,000 lives. I think that's a very interesting idea. It's something I want to talk to you about as
Let's
well. So, but I
Yeah,
want to
let's
thank
do
you
that.
for joining us.
Thanks, Darshan. Let's do that sometime. And I had a great time talking to you as well. And I love that we had this mix of conversations from ranging from really intense startup journeys to ending it off with what is the purpose of life, really.
That's
So
because
yeah, it was
we're all
fun.
human in the end, right?
That is true. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank you very much as well.
Getting to AHA was brought to you by iResearch. To find out more about us, head to iResearch.com and make sure to search for Getting to AHA in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. And don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening.